Alright, hey everybody, welcome to another episode of TEW Local Global 1987. We're back booking some GCW, and in this episode, we're going to be booking 2 episodes of Fuel, and we're going to be seeing the results of Defiance 1996. So let's open the first Fuel. So Steve Austin is cutting a promo, and DDP comes out, and Sting comes out. And it's announced that tonight DDP will be taking on Steve Austin, and if Austin can win, he will be added to the main event of Defiance, which means it will become a triple threat match instead of just DDP versus Sting. So we get to 100. We start the show with Booker T getting a victory over Fit Finlay. They have good chemistry, that's good. And Booker T gets the victory. Afterwards, we have an interview with Booker T, and he's talking about Triple H, the TV champion, and Stevie Ray, who we have not seen since he lost the TV title for Booker T to Triple H. Got a 70. We got tag team action next. Billy Kidman and Rey Mysterio are taking on the Latino World Order, and Rey Mysterio gets the victory over Hector Garza, which is a good look for Rey Mysterio going into Defiance, where he faces Eddie Guerrero for the Cruiserweight Championship. So he gets a 72. We're backstage with Jericho and Candido, and they're complaining about GCW management and all that shit, the usual stuff. And the new half-owner of GCW, James J. Dillon, the other, of course, being Jesse Ventura, he stumbles upon them complaining, and he books Candido in a match tonight. And get ready, Candido, because that match is not exactly next, but, it's the next match on the show. We have an angle before that, though. It's backstage. Perry Saturn tells John Kronus that they better get the victory tonight over the New Age Outlaws and become the new tag team champions, or else, Kronus might not be happy with what's going on. But next we got Chris Candido in action, and he loses to Al Snow, who gets the victory with that snowplow. Gets a 65. And afterwards, Jericho and Candido beat down Al Snow. So it looks like we're moving into a Chris Jericho Candido versus Al Snow feud. And I gotta fix Jericho's gimmick. So let me mark that down somewhere. Jericho gimmick. Alright, we're just gonna tweak it. Nothing major. We get a promo next. The Nation of Domination are cutting a promo, and BPI come out, and it's announced that next week, Farouk, the leader of the syndicate, will be facing off against BPI's newest member, Satoshi Kojima. Gets a 70. Next up, we get the World Tag Team Championships on the line, and the Eliminators get the victory and the Tag Team Championships when Perry Saturn defeated Road Dogg with a total elimination. So it gets a 76. New tag team champions. We're backstage with Steve Austin and Dustin Rhodes, and Austin tells Dustin that he better get his shit together because it's his fault that they lost last week. But we still have the main event, Steve Austin versus DDP, and it ends with Austin hitting the stunner after interference from Ken Shamrock, which means Steve Austin is now officially added to the main event of Defiance. And afterwards, the Syndicate beat down DDP, and Sting ends up coming out, making the save, gets an 84 in the... Pretty sure this is New England. So we're outside the tri-state region, and we still got an 84, so that's good. And that's the first show of this episode down. We got one more. I still have to book my Saturday night's wrestling. So Dustin Kama sells like crap, but he's great. I love Kama. I love The Godfather. Don't you like The Godfather? So yeah, I still got to book... Saturday night's wrestling, but anyway, let's sim up to our next episode of Fuel right now. Second show of today's episode, let's get right into it. I forgot to fix Jericho's gimmick, but that's okay, I'll remember before the pay-per-view. So we're starting off with the Syndicate in the ring, and Sting and DDP come out per usual, and tonight we're going to have a 4-on-4 tag match if Sting and DDP can find a partner. Can find 2 partners. If they can't, it'll be a 4-on-2 handicap match. So Sting and DDP gotta find partners. We open the show with Rey Mysterio versus Juventud Guerrera, and that, again, the chemistry in this game is so iffy, because Rey Mysterio and Juventud Guerrera had great matches on WCW Nitro. They had a lot of matches, because it was repetitive, but they could wrestle. They absolutely could, especially at this time period in 1996. Rey was still... at the top of his game. Probably the top of his game was still to come, like in 97, but he was still, like, the best cruiserweight wrestler I've ever seen was Rey Mysterio in the ring, and it was matches from Nitro. right? And Juventud was great as well. So they should be clicking, but that's whatever. It's not a big loss. Yeah, it's fine. The LWO come out and they tie up Rey Mysterio in the ropes and they beat down Billy Kidman in front of him and force Rey Mysterio to watch. So Rey versus Eddie at Defiance 52. Candido and Jericho are cutting a promo. They're mocking Al Snow, of course. And that's all the segment is. They just, make fun of a disabled person, a person with a mental disorder, but whatever. That's what heels do. And this was a fabulous match. Satoshi Kojima and Farouk have a very hard-hitting match, I would assume, with Kojima and Farouk, two very, very strong competitors. Kojima, of course, from the Puro Risu world of Japan, where, hard strikes matter, and Farouk, one of the toughest SOBs that the business saw, especially at this time period, got an 88. And it continues, and it ends in a brawl between the BPI and the Battle Pro Initiative and the Nation of Domination, because The Rock will be facing Chris Benoit at Defiance for the Intercontinental Championship, and he gets a 75. We're backstage with Booker T, and he approaches Sting and DDP, and he will team with them tonight in the 4-on-4. So now it's a 4-on-3, unless they can find a fourth partner. Gets a 92. Billy Gunn gets a victory over Hercules, and afterwards, the New Age Outlaws are cutting a promo, and the Eliminators come out, and it's announced that these two teams will be having a rematch at Defiance for the Tag Team Championships. Gets a 72. We're backstage once again, and Triple H, Booker T's opponent at Defiance, comes down, and he accepts to team with Sting, DDP, and Booker T, because there's no ill will between Triple H and Booker T. They're respectful gents at this point. So even though Triple H is the leader of DX, he's still respectful in this encounter. It's a 96. We got a tag team match. Dynamic Dudes do the job for Candido and Jericho. And this was a good match. Also, on Saturday Night's Wrestling, I put Shane Douglas against Justin Credible in a 41-minute match just to see if they could handle it. And you know what? It got a mid-60s. They could do that long of a match. So I took off Justin Credible off the release list. I find it really hard to release people sometimes, but anyway, Shane Douglas is obviously going to stay, and Justin Credible is going to stay now. I'll figure out something for Credible in the future. For Shane, he's in that mid-card position right now. He's putting people over. He's in that Dolph Ziggler position. Congratulations to Nick Nemeth, by the way, for winning the TNA World Heavyweight Championship. Gets a 75 right now. Al Snow comes down. I got off track a little bit. Al Snow comes down and he beats down Chris Candido and Chris Jericho, because at Defiance, Al Snow faces off against Chris Jericho. I just made that matchup, by the way. So I'm going to add that to the list right here. Al Snow versus Chris Jericho. Perfect. And we get our main event with DDP, Sting, Booker T, and Triple H getting a victory when Booker T pinned Ken Shamrock. And Booker got a 70, so not too shabby. And Austin and Sting carrying the match per usual. Gets an 80, also. Gets an 80. And we end the show with DDP, Sting, Booker T, and Triple H celebrating. Kimberly gets in the ring, and the Syndicate jumped them. Big Show choke slams Kimberly Page through the ring, and that's how we end Fuel. And now we're leading into Defiance. The return of Defiance. And it's probably a very well-named pay-per-view at this time period, with the Defiance between DDP, Sting, and the Syndicate. So it was a good time to bring back that pay-per-view. And David Schultz got arrested. That's not good. And the main reason why I had the chokeslam is because Kimberly Page is leaving. She's off to maternity leave in 8 days, which is fine. I just had to write her off TV. And that's how we're going to do it. So I'm going to go to Diamond Dallas Page. I'm going to take off Kimberly Page, just because I don't want her appearing on TV no matter what. And now we're going to go to Defiance. So I'll see you guys there. All right, we are here, ladies and gentlemen. We are here at Defiance in front of 30,000 people at the Alamo. We have Road Dogg on the show, so he can say the Alamo. We don't have Hickenbottom, though. We do have Levesque. All right, doesn't matter. We're starting off with Jim Ross, Joey Styles, and Mauro Ranallo opening the show, and they're running down the card. Jim Ross specifically is running down the card. 6 matches on the show tonight. We've got, starting off with Al Snow versus Chris Jericho, New Age Outlaws versus the Eliminators, Triple H versus Booker T, Chris Benoit versus The Rock, Rey Mysterio versus Eddie Guerrero, and the main event of Steve Austin versus Diamond Dallas Page versus Sting for the GCW World Championship. So let's get straight into it with Al Snow versus Chris Jericho. And Al Snow gets the victory over Jericho with a handful of tights. So cheating a little bit, but that's okay because, it's Al Snow. So it gets an 81. Actually did better than I thought it would, but that's fine. Got New Age Outlaws versus Eliminators next. Again, this did better than I thought. We've got new tag team champions once again, the New Age Outlaws holding the titles. That puts an end to the Eliminators' title reign really quickly. Gets a 78. Triple H retains the television championship after Stevie Ray made his return and attacked Booker T. And Triple H makes defense number 2 of the GCW television championship. Next up, we got Chris Benoit versus The Rock. And Chris Benoit gets the victory, but The Rock intentionally got himself disqualified, which means The Rock is still the Intercontinental Champion, and it gets an 84. And next up is Rey Mysterio versus Eddie Guerrero for the Cruiserweight Championship, and we have a new Cruiserweight Champion in Rey Mysterio when he pins Eddie Guerrero with the Springboard Hurricane Rana, also known as the West Coast Pop. So Rey with a 74, Eddie with a 69, nice. Gets an 80, but we're not done yet. We've got the main event, the Triple Threat. And Sting gets the victory over Steve Austin and Diamond Dallas Page when Sting pinned Austin with the Scorpion Death Drop. And he makes defense number 4 of the World Championship, and he gets an 81. Steve Austin wasn't happy about it. He wasn't pissed or anything, but he wasn't happy. And I try to keep him strong. I try to protect him. I try to make DDP lose, and he wasn't happy with any of it. So I just said, screw it, you're losing. Take the fall. And he did. So there you go. But before the show ends, The Undertaker comes out and he attacks Sting. So it looks like Sting was the guy who was next in line for The Undertaker. And he gets an 82. So not bad. Tell Sting. We're going to tell... You know what? We're going to tell Al Snow and Chris Jericho. Because that surprised me. And that's how we end Defiance. That's how we end the month of June. And now we're in July. And our next big event is at the end of the month, per usual. And it's going to be War in Wales. So, Wrestler of the Year and all that. Let's check that. Ric Flair has jumped ship. He's in the WWF now. Oh, and Fuel is no longer on TBS. It's now on the USA Network. Jerry Flynn has left GCW. Stink has left GCW. Ric Flair is gone. Chavo Guerrero has left the WWF. And Defiance got a .09, 1.99 buy, so almost a million. Just short of a million buys. So let's check this. So Wrestler of the Year is Kid McCoy so far, former WWA World Champion. Company of the Year, Gaia Japan. Team of the Year, Stan Hansen and Bruiser Brody. Match of the Year was Greg Valentine and Tatsumi Fujinami so far. Show of the Year is Big Time Wrestling, I don't know. Young Wrestler, Stevie Knight. Veteran Wrestler, Tatsumi Fujinami. Female Wrestler, Akira Hokuto. Independent Wrestler is Toshiaki Kawada. And that's it. So what did they think of Defiance? Really struck gold. Perfect. And we made $1.3 million. So before we end this episode, let's check the Child Company. We've got new tag team champions, it looks like. Don and Ron Harris are the new tag team champions, defeating Sexton Hardcastle and Christian Cage. And Hardcastle just crossed 200 days as television champion. Curryman, 52 days as champion so far. All right. Let's check the rookie list before I end this episode, and then we'll end it. Wrestler to hire USA 0, Let's go. Too Tough Tony, Adam Jacobs, Adam Pearce, former, the current general manager of Raw. Chris Harris, America's Most Wanted. Dennis Rodman. Umaga. Pretty sure this is Umaga, right? Karl Malone. Anybody interesting? Shane Helms was there last time. Sean Stasiak. I could get Stasiak. I think I'm going to sign him to a developmental deal for 1 year, and I'm going to push him as meat, just like the WWF. He's just going to be meat. Oh, that was a stupid gimmick. But Kurt Angle had his first match against Sean Stasiak, if you didn't know that. He had his first match, I believe it was in 1999? Let's math this. So WrestleMania 2000, he's in the triple threat against Benoit and Jericho. So yeah, it would have been in 1999, in like late 99, maybe Survivor Series, like November. And then he lost to Taz in January at the Rumble. Doesn't matter. Anyway, I'm pretty sure it was Sean Stasiak, his first opponent, but you can correct me. So that's how we end today's episode. Rey Mysterio is a 2-time Cruiserweight champion. The first time he's held this title since 1995, so it's not that long ago, actually. Rock is still the IC champion. Television champion still Triple H. Sting still the world champion. And New Age Outlaws, once again, the world tag team champions. Thank you guys for watching this episode of GCW. Make sure to like if you like this video. Subscribe if you want more. We'll see you guys in the next one. Goodbye.